And welcome back into First Draft. He is Mel Kiper Jr. I am Field Yates. And a reminder, Mel, that while we do think those two quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, will go early, we're not certain they're going to go that early, as in number one overall, which in part could be because of this outstanding pass rushing and defensive line class. So, Mel, I think that as of right now, there is a debate. If the Titans are going to pick a non-quarterback, do you go with Travis Hunter or do you go with Abdul Carter? We're not going to do that debate for this moment, Mel, but tell us why they might be inclined to take that Penn State standout edge.
Well, closing out games. You talk about the flipping at the first half. You say, end of the first half, we get the ball. We got the ball in the last couple of minutes, right? We're going to get the ball to start the second half, and we're going to get the ball at the end of the game. Who's going to close that out and prevent scores, preventing field goals from happening? It's Abdul Carter off the edge. You saw it this year. He, in 1 year, did more than he did in 2 years in terms of sacks and tackles for loss, Field. So this guy has a motor. He closes like a cat, which is impressive. He's consistent. He played the run as well. You talk about edges and sealing edges. He can do that, and he can just flat out get after the quarterback. He has that knack. He's my second highest rated player, right there with Travis Hunter. Has been all year, just right up there at the top. And to put the numbers and know that he's the guy. And tonight, Dennis Sutton on the other side certainly helped. Penn State had a really good front seven, but this guy was the difference maker all year for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, Mason Graham, you see there on your screen. And now, Mal, I think there are three true blue, top of the heap prospects at the very beginning of my big board. Mason Graham from Michigan right there. And then, Mel, right back to you. Mykel Williams from Georgia. If you told me he was an NBA small forward, I would believe it.
Yeah, I think the LTP, he looks the part. The production was okay. I want to see more of a repertoire of pass rush moves, take advantage of that tremendous physical and athletic ability in the NFL, put it together and get that 8 to 12 sacks. That's the number we talk about, 8 to 12 sacks. He needs to be there. He has the talent to do it. We thought he could be the number one pick in the draft. He won't be, but he still has a chance to go in the top 10 based on potential.
Now, let's just take a break here to kind of assess where this class as a whole of pass rushers sort of stacks up. But I think maybe the question that people are asking at the very top of the board for Abdul Carter, who, again, I think you could nitpick him or Travis Hunter as player one overall. Again, a debate we'll have at a different time. But if you're going to take a pass rusher with the very first pick in the draft, people need to know that you're getting the equivalent of like a Bosa brother. Remember, Chase Young famously went extremely high in the draft. What pedigree of player does Abdul Carter fit into? Because last year, we didn't see a pass rusher. Heck, we didn't see a defensive player go off the board until 14th overall. Is Abdul Carter the kind of guy that in different classes would be in the consideration for the very best player?
Yeah, I think he would be right up there, certainly. And I still think the quarterback we have to see by late April. Hey, teams may want to move up. You could move down. We'll see. And Travis Hunter, we talked about, we'll get to him in a minute. But the bottom line is for Carter to be like Micah Parsons and resemble Micah Parsons. You see the number 11. You see what Parsons doing with the Dallas Cowboys. That's what people are going to look at. That's the kind of guy that can impact the game when you need it the most in the NFL. And I've already told you when those areas of that game are. That's Micah Parsons. So, yes, whether it's Travis Hunter, Micah Parsons, those are the two best players in the draft. I said it pretty much all year. Those are your two best players. Travis has been number one since August. Carter's been up there. He's at number two. So, again, are you going to stretch it a little bit for the quarterback because of positional need and value and say, okay, they're 4 and 5 on my board or down a little bit on your board? Will teams still go up and get them at 1 or feel the need to? I said all along, the Raiders are the critical team. Yeah. The Raiders are not going to sit and wait, I don't think, for the quarterback to fall in their lap. They did last year and it didn't work, okay? I don't think they will this year, so that's going to be the team to watch, but certainly Abdul Carter deserves to be up there as highly ranked as he is, not just because he has a talent, but because he had the production when he was turned loose off the edge this year.
Mel, a quick last note from me on Mason Graham. Before we give another trio of players that can disrupt the pocket at a high level, is Graham is a true junior, spent 3 years at Michigan. But you know this, last year, on a Michigan team that had a dominant defense with many players drafted, guys all over the board. I thought Mason Graham was the best player in that defense last year. This season, the team struggled. He was fantastic once again this year. I don't think there's a single weakness in his game. No player is perfect, but there's not an area that you can tell me, hey, Mason Graham is deficient in this regard. Maybe his length is a slightly below elite level. This guy is a disruptor. He completely compromises the interior of the pocket. Go ask Ohio State, the team that just steamrolled through 4 playoff games and barely broke a sweat, what it's like to have to block Mason Graham for 60 minutes. They couldn't do it. That's the reason why Ohio State Wasn't 15-1 this year, but instead went 14-2. Don't worry so much about the sack production for an interior rusher. What he does to open up opportunities for other players to create sacks cannot be measured. I'm just telling you, it is outstanding. There are plenty of other pass rushers, though, Mel. And let's get to a few more. And we're going to start here with one of the more perplexing players in the class, James Pearce Jr. from Tennessee. What do people need to know about him?
Well, I think about Pearce. The same thing with Mykel Williams. We had thought back in August they would be the number one or in line to be the number one pick overall. Yeah, he had production. Yes, he had that. James Pearce Jr. did. But when you look at where he's going to fit in, how is he going to be in the NFL when you're going up against the best in the world? Those offensive tackle spots coming off the edge. That's the debate's going to be, is whether he's in that late first round mix or mid first. I don't think early first round now, Field. I think more late first round area. I would say we said this draft a little underwhelming in the first round. That's because guys like Pearce Jr. didn't pop. They weren't guys that just jumped off the screen at you this year. The talent's there. They did flash. But again, there's going to be some mixed opinion on where he will go by the time we get to late April.
And Mel, here's what I would say about James Pearce is the next 3 months really matter for a guy like this. As you know, I'm not telling people that general managers aren't working on the draft throughout the year. They are. But believe it or not, they got a lot of other stuff they are doing, which includes the season, managing a roster during the season. During the offseason, you might be hiring or firing coaches. You are doing things like, free agency, draft, trades. There's a lot on their plate. The next few months is when the GMs are getting even more focused on the draft, and a player with James Pearce, his natural physical gifts, is going to draw the attention of the top decision makers. It's going to be a bit of beauty in the eye of the beholder for a player with those natural gifts. All right, let's keep moving here with another pass rusher. And you mentioned, the lack of production sometimes from James Pearce and Mykel Williams and others. How about leading the FBS in sacks? That's what Mike Green did out of Marshall. 17 sacks this season. And yes, Mel, the competition must be accounted for. But he played against Ohio State, and what did he do? He made Will Howard uncomfortable for a lot of that game until it became non-competitive. Mike Green, 6'3.5", 251 pounds at the weigh-in during the Senior Bowl, Mel. I get it. People are going to say, he got 17 sacks against a bunch of teams that are not nearly dominant. You're not going to see a bunch of offensive tackles on the schedule for Marshall during the season. They're going to end up playing in the NFL. I don't know, Mel. He's big, he's physical, exceptional athletic ability, a great first step. This guy just screams off the edge, and 17 sacks during a breakout season, for me, merits first-round pick.
Yeah, no question. When you have the talent and you have the production, I don't care where you play. And that's the bottom line about Mike Green. It's the same thing for Donovan Ezeirauku from Boston College. Field. Same exact thing. Production, consistent from week to week. He popped. He jumped out at you, which is what you need to do.
Sure.
And we talk about bend, and we talk about being able to close and be able to have multiple moves, counter moves, secondary moves. He has that. And he was taller offensive tackles have trouble with the ability to get low. We talk Dwight Freeney. Who did Jonathan Ogden struggle the most against during his career, his Hall of Fame career? Dwight Freeney, because Dwight Freeney was in that 6-foot range. That's where you talk about Donovan Ezeirauku is going to give those taller offensive tackles a lot of trouble in the National Football League. He did it all year from start to finish. He liked Mike Green. They were the two guys that were popping every week.
Yep.
And there's a reason, because when you're consistent and you're going out there knowing you're the marked man too, which is impressive. Everybody knew from the get-go who you had to contain, and they couldn't. So that's why Mike Green and Donovan Ezeirauku deserve an awful lot of credit.
Yeah, production does matter. It certainly suggests there are some great traits involved. All right, coming back in just a moment here on First Draft, we're going to discuss the unicorn. That's right, perhaps the best player in the entire NFL draft class.